What is up, horror fans? My name is Bunny Sweets, and in my last video, I hinted that I was going to be releasing an exclusive sneak peek into an upcoming horror attraction. Now, there were a few guesses in the comments, and I'm happy to say that those of you who guessed we would be reviewing the No One Home haunted house in Reno were wrong. It's actually Fazbear's Fright, the horror attraction in southwestern Utah. Now, for those of you who are on the cutting edge of the haunted house scene, let me catch you up on the promo material we've already reviewed on this channel for Fazbear's Fright. This is the description they have posted on their Facebook. Coming soon, Fazbear's Fright, the horror attraction. Local amusement park is getting ready to scare your socks off with a new attraction based on the unsolved mysteries of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Featuring actual relics from the decades-old pizzeria, this new attraction is guaranteed to bring back your childhood in the worst way possible. So for those of you who were raised under a rock, whose parents never let you have any fun in life, or just for my younger Gen Z audience, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was a beloved children's entertainment venue featuring animatronic characters like Buunny the Bunny, Chica the Chicken, and Fredbear the Bear. I actually had my 9th birthday party at Freddy's Pizza. Arcades, prizes, a rocking good time with your friends. Honestly, hearing the name Freddy Fazbear's Pizza again brought back the nostalgia of finding my old favorite Monchichi toy from childhood when I went to visit my parents last year.
Monchichi, Monchichi, oh so soft and cuddly. Happy, happy Monchichi. I love you, Monchichi.
However, the good memories for many are tainted by a slew of unsolved murders that took place around a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in the mid to late 80s. A serial killer dubbed the Mascot Killer has been turned into a local legend in the 30 or so odd years since his last known kill. According to the legends, the Mascot Killer would disguise himself as an animatronic, still as a statue, or faking the jerky movements of a robot, and then when people thought they were alone with their favorite animatronic character, he'd suddenly lunge at you and grab ya. Fazbear's Fright is a haunted house that's meant to walk the line of nostalgia and fear as you try to make it through a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza after hours. Any of the animatronics could be the Mascot Killer waiting until you turn your back to unfreeze and attack. Can you survive the night? And this was all the information we had on the attraction. Until now, because the owners of Fazbear's Fright reached out to me and asked if I'd like an exclusive sneak peek to give an early review on my channel. So I got in my car, grabbed some Chesters and a Sprite at the gas station, and drove to southern Utah. There I met with the main man who's been collecting artifacts from Freddy's and designing the experience. And I'm gonna level with you all, I totally forgot his name. So for the purposes of this video, I'm just gonna call him Dude. Dude, if you're watching this, I am so sorry. Dude was super chill, let me ask all sorts of questions, but I was only allowed to take limited photos and videos while inside to not give away any of the magic for when the attraction is actually open. I could tell just from talking to him outside the building the amount of passion Dude felt about this project. Obviously, the concept of a haunted house based around something very thematic and niche is something we love here on this channel. Literally, let me play you a clip from the video I made about Fazbear's Fright when it was first announced. I mean, anyone can make a haunted house about like a circus with killer clowns, but Fazbear's Fright has the potential to be something really one of a kind here, I think. It's very novel to try and make horror out of a shared childhood experience. Okay, well what I mean by that is, so horror is obviously, it has to be rooted in something shared in order to be a haunted house, otherwise only 5 people are going to find it scary and it'll totally flop. But what I mean is, like, so many of us have been to a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, or at least one of the offshoot animatronic diners and arcades that popped up trying to copy Fazbear's success. It's like trying to make a haunted house out of Ronald McDonald. Hold on, wait, that's actually such a great haunted house idea, let me write that down. Okay, the real point I'm trying to get at, though, is that so much of horror is about scary stories that are passed down and pretty far removed from the attendee's actual experience. But, like, I basically lived in McDonald's. I climbed around on the play place and ate and made friends and got pink eye. And then if you were saying, yeah, we're gonna make a haunted house where you're a kid again in the play place and Ronald McDonald is looking for you, I would be like, yes, oh my gosh, Ronald McDonald did creep me out as a child. And I loved that play place. And it just capitalizes on a childhood fear and nostalgia that's so close to the chest, really. I think if Fazbear Fright does their best, I think that's what they're gonna achieve. I think it's gonna be lit. So yeah, as I said in that earlier clip, I came into this experience with a lot of hope that Fazbear's Fright would be not only a good experience, but also something I'd never really seen done before. Even before stepping foot in the building, talking with Dude, I could tell he had the same vision.
Hey, glad you came. Like, the attraction opens in like a week. But you know, like I said, we're trying to feel really authentic, I think. In trying to make the place feel vintage, we may have overdone it a bit.
The name of the game for him was Authentic. He's really going out trying to find actual actual relics from old pizzerias. So I was prepared not to see some cheap imitation of a Fazbear's, but to walk through that door and be back in 1984, turning 9 years old. And let me tell you, it was just that. Stepping in was seriously like a portal to childhood. The place even smelled like the mix between pizza and a shoe cubby. There's all these old drawings lining the walls that dude assured me were like actual drawings kids had done in the 80s. How cool would it be to go to this haunted house and then look on the wall and be like, oh my gosh, I drew that when I was 5. And then they had all these vintage arcades that I totally forgot existed. Pizza Roller, Freddy in Space. I used to be so good at that one. Fast Food Invader, and that one purple car racing game. Just like usual, we're gonna rate this place on atmosphere, the scares, novelty or originality, and value. And we're already off to a strong start with atmosphere. So you walk through the entrance, you're totally struck with nostalgia for the 80s, but then you stay in that building for more than a minute, and I don't know, something about the air in that building. I was seriously getting the creeps. I was still just like standing there in the entrance talking to dude. Hadn't seen any of the scares of the other rooms yet, and I was getting shivers up my spine. I don't know what it was about the atmosphere, or like, it was like literally the air in this place, but it'll give you the spooks, man, I guarantee it. So you walk through the building and it has all these rooms you'd expect in the pizzeria. There's the party area, the arcade area. I honestly don't remember a kitchen, but it's not like you're nostalgic for the kitchen. And there's also this really nifty security office. They said they're looking for someone with a background in security to actually work the cameras in this room, so anyone looking for a job as a security guard / scare actor, hit up dude, this cushy office could be yours. So the atmosphere of the place as a whole was simultaneously elevated and diminished by their vision of an attraction that's 100% authentic, because there's not a single cheap looking prop in this whole facility. Like I said, we had actual drawings, actual arcade machines, actual animatronic heads and masks and the like, and that really boosted the atmosphere here. There was never a moment that you sometimes have in haunted houses where you're like, wow, this looks really great, but why is the chainsaw made of styrofoam, you know? But this quest for authenticity did lead to some of the hallways being pretty sparse, and this is going to be a recurring theme for this place. Because they didn't want to use any cheap filler, there are some areas that are just not as full. And that led to the atmosphere of some areas being quite unique and nostalgic, especially the arcade area, but then it led to some areas being like entirely forgettable. So overall, I'd give this place an 8.5 out of 10 on atmosphere. Like I said, not only did I feel like I'd been transported into my past, I also was actually like quaking and seeing things out of the corner of my eye just standing in the entrance. Now there's one thing I think this haunted house nailed, and then I think there's some ways that it flopped. Let's start with the critique first. Unfortunately, despite the great atmosphere, this haunted house is just lacking in actual content. Dude's vision for this place is that there are no scare actors except for the security guard, and it's all salvaged animatronics from old Freddy's locations that do the jump scare. And while that is the coolest idea I've ever heard, they just didn't have enough animatronic parts to make it work. They had some heads that play loud noises and flash lights, but ideally you'd have a solid scare in almost every room. I will say though, that old tall skinny animatronic that used to work the prize counter, edit in post because I had to look it up, apparently it was called the Marionette, actually almost made me pee my pants. And it looked fully functional, like it moved all the way down a hall and into another room, just like how the old animatronics used to be able to walk around and give cakes and stuff. And I'm so glad they got that prize counter puppet thing, because it does this super uncanny hover when it moves around, unlike the clunky robot movements of most of the animatronics, and its movement is just super distressing and it scared the daylights out of me. So when I asked dude how they got that weird puppet animatronic in such good working order, he was like, what puppet animatronic? Ultimately, the rating that I'd normally be giving on the scare actors, which here is actually the rating for the animatronics, is probably only a 3 out of 10, which is not very high, but the puppet thing was the only full functioning animatronic they had, and the other moving parts were just too few and far between. But dude is still in the process of going out to locations to salvage more parts, so there's a good chance that that score will significantly increase by the time Fazbear's Fright actually opens up. I hope they're able to get their hands on at least one more real animatronic, because if they're not, I personally think they should compromise and hire some scare actors, because the actual scares in this place were seriously underdeveloped. Let's move on to the positives, and I am dying to tell you about this part of the attraction. It is so cool and novel that I think it alone makes up for how sparse the scares were in most of the rooms. But this is also the main draw and spoiler of the attraction in my opinion. Even more so than the average scares at a haunted house, you definitely lose some of the magic if you know about it beforehand. That said, it's an easy bit to miss and I wouldn't want any of my viewers to miss out on this. If you want to skip hearing the spoiler and you think you'll find it on your own, skip to the timestamp on screen. Okay, everyone gone who doesn't want it spoiled? Good. Fazbear's Fright has the most novel and exciting feature. So the experience, like most haunted houses, is pretty linear. Sure, you can dip into a dead-end area or be on like a different half of the room, but for most part you go from point A to point B to point C and then through to the exit, you know? Or so you think. Because if you're taking the time to explore, look for places to hide, looking closely at the intricate props, you might just find a vent. Oh my gosh, peeking behind an arcade machine and finding this enormous vent was such a shock. And its very existence freaked me out because of course it's a common tactic for a haunted house to have these behind the scenes passageways where scare actors can crawl through to jump out of seemingly nowhere. Except this place has no scare actors. So why is there a vent big enough for a person to climb through? And I take a look at dude who's got this like big smile on his face and I'm like, what's this? And he's like, climb in. Freaking climb in. So he probably saw the look of shock on my face and he's like, I'm dead serious mate, you can climb in, there's security camera footage in there. And so I do. I actually climb in and start like crawling through this vent and I'm in a freaking sci-fi movie trying to get to the bridge of the ship and blow it up.
Sir, they've gone up the ventilation shaft.
And the whole time I'm like checking behind me because, oh my gosh, something could grab your leg and yank you. And in that moment, I'm like, this is what cave divers feel like. And I was actually starting to freak out a little when boom, I'm in a whole different room. Dude is meeting me at the exit of the vent. Like words cannot express how crazy it is that they built this feature in. I've literally never seen anything like it. Like maybe you can imagine how incredibly cool it feels to go to a haunted house, start walking through feeling like it's normal, and then discovering a secret area that not every guest is going to find. It really makes the experience feel so much cooler knowing that you found this exclusive area, knowing that there are more out there that you missed, and that what you thought was sort of a set script from beginning to end can actually change depending on how observant you are and how much you explore the haunted house. And many haunted houses do a bit with claustrophobia, but I have never seen a place that homes in on that deep dread of crawling like a cave diver. Seriously, if you are claustrophobic, do not go in these vents. But if you want to feel like a total baddie and get the most out of the experience, keep your eye out as you walk around for these things. I wish I could feel the excitement of discovering the vents for the first time again. It absolutely blew my mind. And I asked Dude about the inspiration for including these vents, because so far most of the things in this attraction like make sense to me as playing on childhood nostalgia and fear, but I was like 99% certain Fazbear did not let their customers crawl around in the vents at any location, and I don't remember ever noticing vents that big, so I didn't know where this was coming from, but apparently the inspiration for the vents came from an old staff rumor that there were vents large enough to crawl through in some of the original Freddy's locations, and they were for costume performers to make quick exits from an area when being swapped out with an actual animatronic. Wild. If that actually did happen, I can see why that practice was probably abandoned, because that sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen. Alright, people who skipped ahead to avoid the spoilers should be joining us now. So I'd absolutely give this place a 10 out of 10 for novelty, for all the things I just said, and of course just for the whole concept of basing a horror attraction around a Freddy's. And now for the final metric. Bang for your buck. The pricing for entrance is a little steep at $23 a person, considering that it is not a very long experience. I can understand they probably had to put up a lot of money to bring this place to life and restore the vintage animatronics, not to mention the custom vents in the building, and so I'm not at all upset with the pricing. But that said, for an activity that lasts probably 45 minutes at the longest, many other haunted houses will give you more for less. But, of course, you're not just paying for minutes inside of the haunted house, but also the quality of the set. And as I said before, basically everything in that building is an authentic Freddy's artifact. All that in mind, bang for your buck, I'm gonna put at a 5.5 out of 10. So overall we have atmosphere at 8.5, scares at 3, novelty at 10, and bang for your buck at 5.5, giving Fazbear's Fright an overall score of 6.75 out of 10. Now I know that isn't the highest score of some of the places I reviewed, and that might put some of you off, but I definitely think this place deserves a chance because A, I'm expecting the scares will get better as Dude continues his search for more animatronics, and B, the novelty score is a 10 out of 10, so even though it's a little pricey, I think you've just got to experience it at least once. An enormous thank you and also an apology to Dude. A thank you for inviting me and showing me around, and a big apology for forgetting your name. Let me know below in the comments if you plan to go to Fazbear's Fright once it officially opens, and what horror attraction you think I should review next. I have been your horror guide, Bunny Sweets, and remember, the extra U in Bunny stands for until next time. Good day.